The International Judicial Forum, New Proposals for the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide, held on May 12, 2017 at the Rey Juan Carlos University in Madrid, Spain, counted with the participation of distinguished jurists and academics from different regions of the world, who gathered to discuss and analyze subjects related to international law, universal jurisdiction, and the improvement of supranational institutions working towards a justice for peace. In the first part of the forum, with keynote speeches, prominent speakers laid the groundwork for discussion on the current reality of international instruments, national legislation, and criminal policy when trying to prevent, prosecute, or punish the crime of genocide in the world. With a methodology of panel discussions and debates in the second part of the forum, 5 internationally renowned professors addressed the central questions of moderation led by Dr. Erika Torregrosa, who sought to propose measures that lead to the democratization of the United Nations Security Council and the modification of the UN regulation to limit or rationalize the use of right to veto.
Do you believe that the right to veto corresponds to a political, democratic scheme within the UN? If you believe this is not so, which is what I believe, what would your proposal be to limit or ultimately to rationalize the use of the right to veto when dealing with the adaptation of measures to counteract genocide?
The construction of that democracy in the United Nations is not found. We cannot allow it to be found in the very hands of the states. It will be the brave actions of the citizens, and I would dare to speak of a world citizenship. That is where we have to start moving into.
I think we have to effectively democratize the Security Council. We have to make it more operative. The great inconvenience is the right to veto. We can say there should be more permanent members from other countries that have a specific pull, like Japan, also a defeated country, Germany, Africa, of course. There is no one from Africa, Brazil, India. They are very important countries. Some of them are very sought out, like Japan.
The structure of the United Nations, the body charged with ensuring the peace and security of the world's citizens, has been strongly criticized for not being a democratic scheme. The participation of only 5 permanent members in the Security Council for the decision on certain measures adopted was also a subject of study for the panelists.
Veto responds to the interests of the great powers. And precisely, these great powers do not use it with humanitarian criteria, but according to their own interests. There has been talk of the permanent members without the right to veto. But let's not forget that the veto is in the Charter of the United Nations. And to amend that charter, they must count with a favorable veto, or at least not count with the veto of the 5 permanent members.
The power of the permanent members must be minimally 2 votes, having to justify it or motivate it. This methodology will generate greater dialogue between the voting parties and interesting international policy negotiations among permanent members with the right to veto.
If we are to democratize the United Nations, having an understanding of the inequities and the things that are going wrong must become more transparent. We need television stations in nations across the world to broadcast the proceedings, the UN General Assembly meetings in greater detail so that people can be shocked by inaction or not.
An enriching space in which the rights and privileges within the UN Security Council were discussed, and the possibility of expanding the number of members within the Permanent Council as measure to achieve the effectiveness of international instruments and bodies and reach the peace of the human family.